In a dusty land where the sun beat down without mercy, lived a miner named Omar. He was one of the poorest in the region, sharing a leaky home with his wife Suri and their 2 small children. Their meals were often just rice, and some nights sleep came on an empty stomach. But hunger and poverty could not diminish the quiet, unshakable faith that lived inside Omar's heart. It was a patient faith, one that woke with him each morning and carried him through the day. Every dawn, after his prayers, Omar would walk to the river, his old pan in hand. For hours he'd stand under the scorching sun, sifting through sand and stones, his eyes searching for the faintest glint of gold. Most days, his reward was just a few tiny grains, barely enough to buy food for his family. Yet, when he returned home, covered in dust and bone-tired, he always had a smile for his wife and a hug for his children. He'd thank God for what little he had and fill their small home with stories of hope. Nearby, a wealthy gold buyer named Damien often worked. Damien had everything Omar lacked: money, land, and power, but his heart was a barren wasteland. He took a cruel pleasure in mocking the poor miners, especially Omar. In front of others, he'd laugh loudly, his voice dripping with scorn. "Look at this fool. You will never find real gold, Omar. You were born to be poor, and all you'll ever bring me are crumbs." Omar never fought back with anger. He would simply meet Damien's cruel words with a gentle smile and say, "God can do the impossible. I trust in him." That unshakable calm, that quiet smile, irritated Damien more than any angry retort ever could. It was a light he couldn't understand and therefore couldn't extinguish. One evening, after another long, fruitless day, the weight of his family's struggle pressed down on Omar. He sat alone in the small room, the single lamp casting long, flickering shadows. His children were asleep beside their mother. For the first time in a very long time, tears welled in his eyes, tracing paths through the dust on his cheeks. He fell to his knees, his voice trembling as he prayed. "O Lord, I do not ask for riches for myself. I ask for my family. Give me enough to care for them, to see them fed and safe. I will never forget you." That night, Omar had a vivid dream. A man appeared before him, his presence radiating a calm, gentle light. He was dressed in clean clothes that seemed to shine from within. The man spoke softly, his voice like a peaceful melody. "Omar, your faith has been seen. Your prayers have been heard. Tomorrow go to the town square. Feed the pigeons. Pray. Then go to the river." Omar woke with a start, his heart pounding in his chest. The dream felt more real than reality itself. He immediately told Suri what he had seen. She listened with a quiet intensity, her eyes reflecting the lamplight. When he finished, she placed a hand on his and said softly, "Perhaps this is a message from God. Let us obey." The next morning, with a renewed sense of purpose, Omar took a small bag of grain precious food he had saved and began the walk to the town square. On the way, he saw a frail old man sitting by the side of the road, his face etched with weakness and hunger. Without a moment's hesitation, Omar stopped. He opened his small bag and poured the grain into the old man's hands. "I have very little," Omar said with a kind smile, "but what I have, I am happy to share." The old man's eyes lit up. He took the grain, and then, placing a warm hand on Omar's shoulder, he looked deep into his eyes and blessed him. A moment later, the old man seemed to melt away into the morning crowd, vanishing as quickly as he had appeared. When Omar reached the square, a flock of pigeons gathered around his feet as if they had been waiting for him. Remembering the dream, he scattered the remaining grain for them. As their wings fluttered around him in a soft whirlwind, he closed his eyes and prayed, not with desperation, but with gratitude. "Thank you, Lord, I trust you." A profound peace washed over him, a deep calm that settled his soul. From the square, Omar walked to the river. He began his work with the same patience he showed every day, his hands moving through the familiar rhythm of sifting and washing. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, beating down on his back. A whisper of doubt began to creep into his mind, but he pushed it away, focusing on the memory of the dream. Just as his hope began to waver, his eyes fell upon a large, oddly shaped rock submerged in the water. He had never noticed it before. A quiet, insistent voice inside him urged him to move it. It was heavy, and it took all his strength, his muscles straining. With a final, desperate heave, he lifted the rock and rolled it aside. And there, nestled in the riverbed beneath where the rock had been, lay a massive nugget of pure gold. It shone with an impossible brightness, reflecting the sunlight in a dazzling, blinding display. Omar froze, his breath catching in his throat. He stared, unable to believe his eyes. Then, he fell to his knees, his face buried in his hands as tears of overwhelming gratitude poured down his face. "Thank you, Lord," he whispered, over and over again. "Thank you." He carefully wrapped the treasure and carried it home. When Suri and the children saw the magnificent nugget, they gasped in unison. Their tiny, leaky home was suddenly filled with a golden light. Together, the family knelt, their voices joining in a prayer of thanks. The next day, Omar traveled to a larger town and sold the gold for a fortune. But the miracle did not change the goodness in his heart. The first thing he did was give a generous portion of the money to help the other poor families in his region. With the rest, he started his own small gold buying business. But he ran it differently. Unlike Damien, Omar paid the miners a fair price for their findings. He treated every single person with dignity and respect. He never forgot the sting of mockery, the ache of an empty stomach, or the power of a heartfelt prayer. Word of his fairness and kindness spread like wildfire. Miners from all over began to bring their gold to Omar. His business flourished and grew, but his humility never wavered. Every morning, he still began his day with prayer. Every evening, he ended it with thanks. Through his journey, Omar learned a profound truth that many people never discover. True wealth isn't measured in gold or land, but in the steadfastness of your faith. True power isn't found in dominance, but in kindness. When you trust in a higher power, share what you have with those in need, and keep your heart pure. Even the smallest, most humble life can shine brighter than the greatest treasure on earth. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring content.